This is JC. Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas. Um, Christmas is a time for telling tales and stories, and I think I may have told this on Facebook at one time or another, but I'm going to tell it again. This time I'm going to do it on video and put it on JCam Poet, and I have to make sure my little niece, Gail, hears it if she hasn't already. Maybe she has, I don't know. But anyhow, I'm going to do it. So without further ado, this is my Christmas story. Now this is called Tumbleweed Christmas. And I was over at Ecotig's place today, and I saw a picture of a tumbleweed that brought back fond memories about the Christmas of 1946. I think that was the year, give or take a year. Now Ecotig is a young woman who had a blog many years ago, and I don't think she has it anymore. Her husband has a blog. His name was Zane. They had a young son who had some learning disabilities. Anyhow, we were quite close for a while, but now this is the year 2012, and I wrote this in my blog in 2005. So, anyhow, that was the year 1946. Mom and Pop, my stepdad, and I went to Chowchilla to pick cotton, and we were still there on Christmas Day. We drove there from Modesto in a 1935 Ford that had a top speed of 55 miles an hour. Pop drove 45 miles an hour. We started early in the morning and stopped at the south edge of Modesto at a Richfield Golden Eagle service station for gas. Most gas stations of that day had gas pumps, and they had glass tops on the top halves of the pump that let you see the gas, which had to be hand pumped in until it got up to the mark of however much gas you wanted. There were marks of 1 gallon, 5 gallon, and 10 gallon, etc. The marks were etched into the glass tank so that you could see how much gas was in the top glass tank before filling the car. If you wanted 5 gallons, you pumped until you got it up to the 5 gallon mark. Then the gas pump nozzle was put into the car gas tank and opened, and the gas flowed down out of the pump and into the car's gas tank. Gas then was 17 cents a gallon, and when Mom paid for it, the attendant gave me a small comic book with some superhero, the Green Hornet or Captain Marvel or someone like that. It was about 60 miles to where we were going, a ways past Chowchilla, to pick cotton, and it took a couple of hours to find the place. It was a tent village, and we found the man who ran it, and he told us which tent to use. We found the tent all right and moved our things into it. It was daylight now, but dark inside the tent. We didn't have a light bulb, but had passed a general store a few miles back. The man didn't say whether or not the electricity was turned on, so Mother, the fearless one, stuck her finger in the socket and pulled a chain. Oops, yep, the electricity was on. So Pop went back to the store and got a light bulb. The cotton patch looked pretty good. It looked like Pima cotton, which is the best to pick. Almost all the cotton bolls were open and full, and it wasn't too leafy. We would start picking cotton later in the morning after the dew had melted. Pop and Mom had 12-foot sacks, and I had an 8-footer. The cotton paid $3 a hundred, and there were 2 men to climb the ladders to the top of the trailers and dump the sacks. That was great for us. Many places had you dump the sacks yourselves, and it was pretty hard to climb those ladders with a full cotton sack. Some bosses, like this one did, hired men to dump the sacks so people couldn't put the heavier green bowls in their sacks to get more weight. $3 was about top wages for picking. With the 3 of us working, we picked between 500 and 600 pounds a day. We got paid each day, each time a sack was emptied into the trailer. We weren't fast by any means. My brother-in-law picked 900 pounds one day. He was the fastest picker I ever saw. This is Clarence. He's the husband of my sister, Mickey. He's gone now. He always took 2 rows up and 2 rows back. To pick cotton, you start at the end of the cotton patch and pick a row all the way to the end, then find an empty row and pick all the way back to where the trailers were parked. To make a long story shorter, I'll get to the gist of this one. We got to the cotton patch 2 days before Christmas and worked both days. My mother was always one for Christmas trees with all the trimmings, but this was the cotton patch and there were no trees available. So Mom, being the one who readily adapts, went across the road from the tent and found a medium-sized tumbleweed. It was very dry and very light. She brought it into the tent, and we tore pieces of a newspaper and some colored paper she had brought and Mom made a big pan of popcorn, and we strung popcorn with a needle and thread and put the popcorn in paper angels and pieces of paper on the tumbleweed. She put her prettiest hair clip barrette on the top for an angel. It wasn't like the usual Christmas tree, but we thought it was beautiful. Mom made cocoa, and we had hot cocoa and ginger snap cookies and sang Christmas carols. Mom and I did most of the singing. Pop wasn't much for singing carols. "O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie." That was my favorite carol. Then we opened our gifts. Pop got a nice pair of Argyle-style socks and a set of handkerchiefs, and Mom got some colored scarves and a set of handkerchiefs. I got a detective set. It was a small pistol, a billy club, and a pair of real handcuffs. They were all on a card sealed in clear plastic. Oh, and a set of handkerchiefs with my initial on them. We all oohed and awed over our gifts. They were much by today's standards, but we loved them. That was a typical Christmas for most folks in those days. Times were hard sometimes in those days, but we always made do with what we had. I didn't even know I was poor until I was 13 years old, but that's another story. We picked another week or so. When that field was picked, we went to another and finished our picking there. We got back not long after Christmas holiday was over, so I started right back in school. Shortly after that, both Mom and Pop went to work for the Tri-Valley Cannery. Pop worked there until he died in the early 50s, and Mom worked there until she retired many years later. We still sometimes went to the cotton patch when we could. Well, that's the story of our tumbleweed Christmas tree. It aged then 69 when I wrote this, 76 now. I find that more and more often, things I see or hear take me back to my earlier years. It's becoming easier and easier to spend time in the past, and I've had such an exciting and varied existence that there's always somewhere to go when I'm bored with the here and now. But that, too, is also another story. Later. Thank you very much. This is JC, and I'll see you down the road if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise.